Okay, you're feeling something bad, you don't want to feel like that, so you resist what is. That creates suffering. Okay, we're gonna go deeper this time. Last time we talked about non-resistance, non-attachment, and non-judgment. Go and look at the other video if you haven't. As I always say in these unfiltered videos, please have the necessary attention span to watch the entire video, because the things I'm gonna say here are some of the most important things a human being can know during their lifetime over here, basically. Thinking excessively is a disease. Most of the time, you're not aware that you're thinking. But the reason you're thinking, the reason most people think, is because they get their sense of self from thinking. So if you identify with something, let's say a political party, or your name, or your spouse, or your nationality, or whatever it might be, you identify with something, you see that as a part of yourself, that is a thought. Okay, so that means you identify with thoughts, and if you sit there and think, you think that's yourself. Well, let me tell you something. You are not your thoughts, and you're not your emotions. Well, we're at it. You're not your emotions. You're not what you see. You're not what you hear. You're not what you taste. You're none of those things. You are the one that observes all of these things. You are the awareness. And now when I'm talking, maybe you've stopped thinking because you've realized this. Some of you have realized, some of you haven't. You've stopped thinking and now you can feel it. That is what I am. I just am. Because you can't, if you say I am, you can't add anything at the end of I am, because what you are cannot be labeled. It's like the sky. Yeah, the sky looks kind of blue, during the day. But if you look at it, there's nothing there. There is no sky, really. It's just empty space. Right? It's the same with consciousness, as Eckhart Tolle says. It can't be labeled. It's not really there, but it is something, and we need to label it. So we label it as awareness, consciousness, being, something like that. And so many people say, oh, I am then their name, then I am a person from this, I am a person who likes this, I am a person who does that. And all of that's false. All of that is false. They just are. They're observing the thoughts they're creating for themselves. Right? Stop living like from your fictitious identity. So your name, the things you like, the things you dislike, your emotions, your thoughts, stop that. Be aware of what's behind all of that and observe it. Now, yes, this does take practice. And I would really recommend that you start meditating, that you watch some of Frank Young's latest videos. What are some ways to access this real self, consciousness, awareness? How do you access it? Because some of you, by listening to my voice, can already feel it, because you're more aware than other people. Or maybe you were just awakened by watching this video. That would be really funny. And I would be happy if that happened to you, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to feel. Your real self, what you actually are. No BS. If you focus on your breath, and you just concentrate on your breath, going in and out, then you'll feel it. What's behind there, not your breath itself, but the one that's observing the breath, is there. And it's easy to see who you are when you breathe, because breathing isn't a lot. It's not like a roller coaster. It's very little from an experience perspective. There's very little things happening, so you can feel your awareness more. The other thing, and probably my favorite one, is just to be aware of your body. So if you go down to your feet right now, you'll feel that there's some kind of energy in there, right? And if you're just aware of that, then it's very hard to think, because usually your energy is up here. But if you move it down to your legs, it becomes easier to not think, because you're concentrating on what you're feeling in your legs, in your feet, in your hands. You could even be aware of your forehead. It doesn't really matter. None of that is you, really. Your body isn't you. So what should you do with all of this, and what does it have to do with mental health? Well, you suffer because you want what is to be a certain way, right? Someone says something bad to you, you feel pain. You say, okay, why this person made me upset, and I'm feeling something bad. That means you're resisting what is. Okay, you're feeling something bad, you don't want to feel like that, so you resist what is. That creates suffering. While if you practiced non-resistance, then you wouldn't feel anything. If you had no self, you wouldn't feel anything. And this is a very important topic, because if someone says something bad to you, if someone is screaming at you, if someone is being, unconscious, which, we have family members that are unconscious, we have friends that are unconscious, we meet with unconscious people all the time. Bruce Lee said that you should be like water, right? When you practice non-resistance, when you have no self, the other person can't attack anything. Because if they say, oh, well, you're this or that, well, then there has to be an image, there has to be an identity that you associate with that gets hurt from a thought perspective, which then immediately triggers an emotional response, and you feel bad. And because you feel bad, you think that the other person has hurt you with their words, so you respond. And you go back and forth, and you just, you create suffering for both you and the other person. But if you know who you are, which is nothing, or everything, or it depends on how you see it, you can't really label it with words, really. There's nothing for the other person to attack. You don't have any fictitious identity that will get hurt by sound waves reaching your ears. You'll just hear it, and yes, I still feel emotional pain when someone tells me certain things, but I know that it's not the person who is hurting me. It is just a reaction that I have because of certain mind patterns that I have grown up with. That's it. And I recommend that you also think about it this way, that the person is not the one hurting me. I am hurting, there is pain in me, and I am responsible for it. And then each time this cycle happens where someone says something bad to you or something happens and you feel emotional pain and you deal with it by not resisting it and being aware of it, you start feeling less and less emotional pain each time it happens. Lastly, I want to talk about love and how you should relate to other human beings. So now you know that the person who is thinking, the person who has an identity, that the body itself is not you. You're what observes all of that. You're the one who technically controls the body. You're not the body. You can feel it. You are sort of pervading it, but you're not it, really. You're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions. And that means that, there are several of you watching this video. There's you, and there's you, and there's you. There's no difference between you. You all share the same principle of existence, which is your consciousness, your awareness. Which means that every single human being, technically, their source is the same. Which means that whatever you are, the other person, their essence is the same thing, which means that you are everyone, technically. Now, because I've been meditating a lot recently, I've been feeling this, but not, that much. So I've always, after reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I've known about this. I've been able to, work this out from a mental perspective, but I've never felt it. But yesterday I was really feeling it. This level of awareness takes time, but you can get there, it's not that hard. Lastly, I want to leave you with this because I believe it is very helpful for people to know this, because love is a big part of our lives. Most of you are attracted to the opposite gender, so if you feel strong feelings toward another human being, that means you recognize what is in you in them. This also means that you recognize what is in you in everybody else, but sometimes you feel something more in someone than everybody else because of certain reasons that I cannot comprehend, that maybe we cannot comprehend. So love as a concept is not reserved, technically, to one person. If you love everybody else. If you don't love everyone, if you don't feel love toward other people when you're feeling in love with a person, then that is attachment, okay? If you can't live without another person, if your well-being depends on them, if you're suffering because you're not with them or because of something they said or whatever it might be, then you are attached to the idea, to the experience of another person. You are not in love, you're just attached. Real love has nothing to do with one person, it has to do with everyone. You love all of humanity. You don't just love one person. And even if you just, feel strongly toward one person, you're not attached to them, you're not dependent on them, you're not dependent on what you experience with them. And yeah, of course, you'd be sad during a breakup or if they died, but you wouldn't be identified to the thought or the emotion that being with them is a cornerstone of your well-being. Now that you've watched this video, you know that most mental health issues come from thinking. They come from thinking. You've created a fictitious identity that is attacked by your thoughts and sometimes by others. You feel emotional pain, you associate that with your thoughts create even more emotions, and then you just feel bad, and you feel bad, and you feel bad, and then you call yourself different names like depressed and anxious and this and that, because you have to identify with even more stuff. You have to identify with the bad feeling. Most of your problems from a mental health perspective can be solved by what I'd like to call old school spirituality, which is basically the teachings of this video, the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings of Jesus, the teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti, the teachings of whatever fantastic spiritual teacher out there. These guys that we call gurus or teachers don't even see themselves as teachers and gurus. They're just there and people ask them for guidance and they try to give the best advice that they can. And we've created religions out of them, when they're just ordinary people who are more aware than others. That is it. Finally, if you want a practice that you can do, sit in darkness, in silence, and do nothing. You don't need darkness and silence, actually. You can just go anywhere, sit there, or even stand there, and do nothing for as long as you can. And whatever feeling you get, let it go. Or don't let it go, just let it be there effortlessly. Effortlessly deal with it. Don't apply any effort to it. Thoughts? Effortless. Anything else? Effortless. The feeling of not wanting to do whatever you're doing? Effortless. With that said, go and achieve excellent health. I know you can do it.